You touched my son with those dirty hands, the woman hissed. The emergency doors behind her were still swinging. A little boy was still coughing, still shaking, still alive because a poor woman had dropped to her knees on a hotel floor and fought for his breath. But the first thing Marisol Bennett heard was not thank you. It was a security guard saying, "Ma'am, step away from the child." And a billionaire's fiancé looking down at her like she was trash. Marisol stood in the middle of the Grand Bell Hotel lobby in downtown Chicago, her gray waitress uniform soaked with spilled orange juice, her hands trembling, her knees bruised from the marble floor. Around her, wealthy guests stared. Phones were out. A man in a tailored suit whispered, "Isn't that Nathan Cross's kid?" Another woman covered her mouth and said, "That poor child." But nobody looked at Marisol like she had just saved a life. They looked at her like she had caused a scene. The little boy, 8-year-old Ethan Cross, clung to the paramedic's sleeve, his face still pale. And before they rolled him away, his small eyes found Marisol. He tried to speak, but only one word came out. Her. Then the ambulance doors closed. And Marisol was left standing there with a billionaire's family, a room full of judgment, and a security guard waiting for orders. Abigail Monroe, the elegant woman in the cream-colored coat, stepped closer. She was engaged to Ethan's father, Nathan Cross, one of the richest real estate developers in America. Abigail's smile was famous in charity photos, but there was no kindness in it now. "You people always find a way into places you don't belong," she said quietly, making sure only Marisol could hear. Marisol lowered her eyes. She was used to being invisible. She was not used to being punished for saving a child. "I only helped him," Marisol said. Abigail looked at the stain on Marisol's uniform and gave a small laugh. "You work in banquet service. You do not touch guests. Especially not my family." A hotel manager rushed over, nervous and sweating. "Ms. Monroe, I am so sorry. We'll handle this immediately." Marisol turned to him. "Sir," he couldn't breathe. He was turning blue. "I saw the allergy bracelet." The manager would not look at her. Abigail folded her arms. "Fire her." Marisol's heart dropped. "Please," she whispered. "I need this job." The manager swallowed. "Marisol, go downstairs. We'll talk later." But everyone in the lobby already knew what that meant. Downstairs, near the service elevators, Marisol sat on a plastic chair with her purse on her lap. Inside was a half-empty bottle of pain medicine for her mother, a rent notice folded twice, and a photo of her 12-year-old daughter, Lily, smiling in a school uniform Marisol had bought secondhand. 3 years earlier, Marisol had been a pediatric nurse at St. Agnes Hospital on the South Side. She knew how to handle emergencies. She knew how fast a child could slip away. But after her husband died in a construction accident, her life fell apart. Bills came faster than grief could heal. Her mother's stroke took the last of her savings. And when Marisol missed too many shifts caring for everyone else, she lost the hospital job she loved. Now she served coffee to people who did not remember her name. And that morning, she had only been working the Cross Foundation breakfast because another waitress called in sick. It was supposed to be a lucky shift. A rich crowd meant good tips. Maybe enough to keep the lights on one more week. Instead, she had seen a little boy at the dessert table, reaching for a chocolate pastry. She saw the bracelet on his wrist. Severe peanut allergy. She saw the small red sign near the pastries turned backward, hidden behind a silver coffee urn. Contains peanuts. Then she saw him take a bite. Within seconds, Ethan's hand went to his throat. His lips swelled. His knees buckled. People gasped, but nobody moved fast enough. Marisol ran. She caught him before his head hit the floor. She shouted for someone to call 911. She found the EpiPen clipped inside his small backpack and used it exactly the way she had done in the emergency room years ago. She counted his breaths. She kept him awake. She told him, "Stay with me, sweetheart. Look at me. You're not leaving today." And he stayed. Now, the hotel manager stood in front of her with a paper in his hand. "I'm sorry," he said. "The family is upset. They're saying you overstepped." Marisol stared at him. "I saved his life." "I know," he said softly. "Then why am I being fired?" The manager looked toward the hallway, afraid someone might hear. "Because people like them don't like being embarrassed." Marisol took the paper. Her eyes burned, but she did not cry. Not there. Not for people who would turn her mercy into a mistake. She walked out through the employee entrance into the cold Chicago afternoon. Snow dusted the alley. Delivery trucks rumbled past. The city moved like nothing had happened. Her phone buzzed. It was Lily. "Mom, did you get off early?" Marisol forced her voice steady. "Something like that, baby. Are we still going to Grandma's appointment tomorrow?" Marisol closed her eyes. "Yes," she said. "We'll figure it out." That night, while Marisol warmed canned soup in their small apartment, Nathan Cross sat beside his son's hospital bed at Northwestern Memorial. Nathan was 42, powerful, polished, and known for buying city blocks before breakfast. His face had been on magazine covers. People called him ruthless, brilliant, untouchable. But now, in the soft blue hospital light, he looked like any terrified father. Ethan slept with wires taped to his chest. Nathan held his tiny hand and replayed the call he had received. "Your son had an allergic reaction. He stopped breathing." A waitress intervened. A waitress. Abigail sat near the window, scrolling through her phone. "The hotel is handling it," she said. Nathan looked up. "Handling what?" "The woman. The one who grabbed him. I told them to let her go." Nathan's jaw tightened. "You did what?" Abigail blinked, surprised by his tone. "She was careless, Nathan. This whole thing happened on hotel property. There's liability. Cameras. Guests. We need control before the story gets ugly." Nathan stared at her. "My son is alive." "Yes, and of course we're grateful," Abigail said, though she sounded more annoyed than grateful. "But we don't know who she is. She could sue. She could sell the video. People do anything for money." At that exact moment, Ethan stirred. His voice was weak. "Dad." Nathan leaned close. "I'm here, buddy." "The lady," Ethan whispered. "She said I wasn't leaving." Nathan brushed his hair back. "I know. She wasn't scared." Nathan looked over at Abigail. Abigail looked away. By morning, the video was online. Not the whole story. Just a shaky clip from a hotel guest. It showed Marisol kneeling over Ethan while guests screamed. It showed her using the EpiPen. It showed Abigail pulling Ethan away as paramedics arrived. The caption read, "Poor waitress saves billionaire's son at Chicago hotel." By noon, reporters were outside the Grand Bell. By evening, Nathan Cross's office was flooded with calls. But Nathan was not thinking about headlines. He was thinking about the woman who had saved his child and then disappeared. "Find her," he told his assistant. Abigail entered the room sharply. "Nathan, before you do anything emotional, we need to discuss strategy." Nathan looked up from his desk. "Strategy?" "Yes. Offer her a settlement. Quietly. Make her sign something. $5,000 should be more than enough." Nathan's eyes hardened. "My son's life is not a public relations problem." Abigail's face changed. For the first time, she looked worried. 2 days later, Marisol was at St. Agnes Hospital, sitting beside her mother's wheelchair, arguing gently with the billing office. "I can pay something next Friday," she said. "Please don't cancel her therapy." The woman behind the desk looked tired, not cruel. "Mrs. Bennet, the account is already past due. We need at least $800 to continue the sessions." Marisol felt the room tilt. $800 might as well have been $8 million. Her mother touched her wrist with her good hand. "Nija," she whispered. "Enough. I'll be okay." Marisol smiled, but it broke halfway. "No, Mama. You're going to walk again." Behind them, a man's voice said, "Mrs. Bennet?" Marisol turned. Nathan Cross stood in the hospital hallway in a dark overcoat, holding a bouquet of white lilies. Beside him stood Ethan, wrapped in a blue scarf, still pale but smiling. Marisol froze. Her first instinct was fear. Had they come to blame her again? Ethan slipped away from his father and walked to her. Before anyone could stop him, he wrapped his arms around Marisol's waist. "Thank you," he whispered. Marisol's hand hovered for a second, then rested gently on his shoulder. "You're welcome, sweetheart." Nathan's voice was low. "I've been looking for you." Marisol stood straighter. "I don't want trouble." "No," Nathan said quickly. "You're not in trouble." "I am." She looked at him, confused. "I didn't know what happened after the ambulance left," he said. "I didn't know you lost your job." Marisol said nothing. Nathan glanced at the billing office window, then at her mother, then back at Marisol. The truth settled on his face. "I'd like to help," he said. Marisol stepped back. "No." Nathan blinked. "I haven't even said how." "I know how men like you help," Marisol said quietly. "You write a check. Then everyone says the poor woman got paid off." Nathan absorbed that. It wouldn't be a payoff. But it would feel like one. Ethan looked up at her. "But my dad has lots of money." Marisol smiled sadly. "I know. But saving you was not a business deal." Nathan reached inside his coat and took out an envelope. "Please. At least let me cover your mother's care. Your rent. Whatever you need." Marisol looked at the envelope. For 1 second, everything in her wanted to take it. Her mother needed therapy. Lily needed school shoes. The landlord had already taped a final notice to their door. But then she remembered Abigail's voice. "You people always find a way into places you don't belong." Marisol pushed the envelope back. "I won't let your money become the story." Nathan lowered his hands slowly. "Then what do you want?" Marisol looked at Ethan. "I want the people who serve that food to stop being treated like they don't matter. I want the hotel to fix its safety rules. And I want your son to grow up knowing that a person's value is not measured by their bank account." Nathan could not answer. Because he had built a life that measured almost everything that way. That night, Nathan watched the hotel surveillance footage. Not the phone video. The full footage. He saw Abigail speaking to the hotel manager before the breakfast. He saw her point at the dessert table. He saw staff moving signs around because the display looked messy for photos. He saw the peanut warning sign turned backward. Then he saw Marisol notice it. He saw her run before anyone else even understood. And after the ambulance left, he saw Abigail lean close to Marisol and say something that made Marisol's face go still. Nathan played that part again. Then again. He called the hotel manager into his office the next morning. The man arrived pale and nervous. "I want the truth," Nathan said. The manager folded fast. "MS." Monroe demanded the signage be moved. She said allergy warnings looked unattractive in press photos. Our staff objected. She insisted. After the incident, she told me to fire Marisol or the Cross Foundation would pull future events. Nathan sat very still. The betrayal did not explode. It sank. Quietly. Deeply. Abigail had not only humiliated the woman who saved Ethan. She had helped create the danger. That evening, the Cross Foundation held its annual gala at the same hotel. Cameras flashed outside. Wealthy donors smiled under golden lights. Abigail wore an emerald gown and moved through the ballroom like nothing could touch her. Nathan arrived late. Without smiling. At home across the city, Marisol had no idea any of this was happening. She was cleaning an empty diner after closing, a temporary shift the owner had given her out of pity. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost ignored it. Then she answered. "Mrs. Bennett," Nathan said. "I'm sorry to disturb you. There's something happening tonight, and I need you to hear it from me." At the gala, Nathan stepped onto the stage. Abigail stood beside him, glowing under the lights. A giant screen behind them read, "Cross Foundation Children's Health Initiative." Nathan looked at the crowd. For years, he began, I believed generosity meant giving from a distance. Writing checks. Taking photos. Letting other people call me a good man. The room grew quiet. But this week, my son was saved by a woman who had every reason to walk past him. She had been ignored. Underpaid. Disrespected. And still, when my child needed help, she ran toward him. Abigail's smile tightened. Nathan continued. Her name is Marisol Bennett. She is a former pediatric nurse, a mother, a daughter, and the reason my son is alive. A murmur moved through the room. Abigail leaned toward him. Nathan, she whispered. Not here. He did not look at her. I also learned something painful. The allergy warning that could have protected my son was moved for appearance. And after Marisol saved him, she was fired to protect reputation. The ballroom went silent. Reporters raised cameras. Abigail's face drained of color. Nathan turned to her, his voice calm but sharp. Reputation without truth is just a beautiful lie. Then he faced the audience again. Effective tonight, the Cross Foundation is ending all partnerships with any venue that punishes workers for reporting safety concerns. We are funding emergency medical training for hospitality workers across Chicago. And the first program will be named after Marisol Bennett, though she refused every personal check I offered her. At the diner, Marisol stood frozen with a mop in her hand, listening through the phone as strangers applauded her name. Nathan's voice softened. She told me something I'll never forget. Saving my son was not a business deal. Ethan, standing near the stage, stepped up to the microphone unexpectedly. Nathan tried to stop him, but the boy shook his head. The lady didn't know me, Ethan said, his small voice shaking. But she talked to me like I mattered. I think everybody should do that. The applause that followed was not polite. It was thunder. Abigail left the stage before the cameras could catch her tears. But it was too late. The next morning, the story was everywhere. Not because Nathan Cross gave a speech. Because a poor woman had refused a billionaire's money and asked instead for dignity. At first, Marisol hated the attention. Reporters waited outside the diner. Neighbors knocked on her door. People online called her a hero. But heroes still had overdue rent. Heroes still had sick mothers. Heroes still woke up at 5 a.m. and wondered how to buy groceries. Then a letter arrived from St. Agnes Hospital. Marisol opened it at the kitchen table, expecting another bill. Instead, she found an offer. The hospital had seen the story. They had reviewed her old record. Her former supervisor, now director of pediatric care, wanted to meet. Marisol read the letter 3 times. Lily leaned over her shoulder. Mom, does this mean what I think it means? Marisol covered her mouth. It means they want me back. The interview was on a rainy Tuesday morning. Marisol wore the only blazer she owned. It was a little faded, but clean. Her mother kissed her hand before she left. Lily said, "Don't be nervous. You already saved a billionaire's kid. A job interview is nothing. Marisol laughed for the first time in days. At St. Agnes, the director stood when Marisol entered. "Marisol," she said, "I owe you an apology. We should have fought harder to keep you years ago." Marisol swallowed. "I had a lot going on." "You had a family crisis," the director said. "And we treated it like a schedule problem." That hit Marisol harder than she expected. The director slid a folder across the desk. "We can offer you a position in pediatric patient care coordination. Better hours. Benefits. And we'll help you renew anything that needs updating." Marisol touched the folder like it might disappear. "I don't know what to say." "Say yes," the director said. So Marisol did. 2 weeks later, Nathan Cross returned to St. Agnes with Ethan for a follow-up appointment. This time, there were no cameras. No speeches. No envelopes. Just a father and son walking down a hospital hallway until they saw Marisol wearing navy scrubs again. Ethan ran to her. "You look like a nurse now." Marisol smiled. "I used to be one." Nathan looked at her name badge. Marisol Bennett. Pediatric care. "It suits you," he said. She nodded. "It feels like coming home." Nathan hesitated. "I owe you more than I can ever repay." Marisol gave him a gentle look. "You don't owe me money, Mr. Cross." "Nathan," he said. She smiled. "Nathan. You owe your son a different way of seeing people." He looked down at Ethan, then back at her. "I'm working on that." Ethan reached into his backpack and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "I made you something." Marisol opened it. It was a crayon drawing of the hotel lobby. A small boy on the floor. A woman kneeling beside him. Above them, in crooked letters, Ethan had written, "She saw me." Marisol's eyes filled. Because that was all she had ever wanted too. To be seen. Not as poor. Not as hired help. Not as someone people could dismiss when the room became uncomfortable. Just seen. A month later, the Grand Bell Hotel held a mandatory safety training for every employee, from managers to dishwashers. Allergy signs became permanent. Emergency kits were placed on every floor. Workers were told they had the right to act when a guest was in danger. And Marisol's old manager called her one afternoon. "I'm sorry," he said. "I should have stood up for you." Marisol listened. For a moment, she remembered the basement chair, the termination paper, the cold alley. Then she said, "Next time someone without power tells the truth, believe them sooner." That was all. She hung up without anger. Because justice does not always need revenge. Sometimes justice is getting your name back. Sometimes it is walking into the place that once broke you and realizing it no longer owns you. Months passed. Marisol's mother began taking small steps with a walker. Lily joined the school choir. The rent was paid on time. Life was still simple, still hard some days, but it no longer felt like a locked door. One evening, Marisol took Lily to a small restaurant near Lake Michigan to celebrate her first full paycheck from the hospital. They ordered burgers, fries, and one chocolate milkshake to share because Marisol said two was too expensive, and Lily said one tasted better anyway. Across the restaurant, a young waitress dropped a tray. Plates shattered. A businessman at a nearby table snapped, "Can somebody competent clean this up?" The waitress bent down, embarrassed, her face red. Before the manager could rush over, Marisol stood. She walked to the waitress and helped gather the broken pieces. The businessman stared. "Do you work here?" he asked. Marisol looked at him calmly. "No," she said. "But I know what it feels like when everyone watches you fall and nobody helps." The waitress whispered, "Thank you." Marisol smiled. "Don't let one broken plate tell you who you are." Lily watched her mother with quiet pride. On the drive home, the city lights reflected on the windshield. The lake was dark. The roads were wet. Chicago looked cold from the outside, but inside the little car, there was warmth. Lily looked over and asked, "Mom, why didn't you take the money?" Marisol kept her eyes on the road. For a while, she said nothing. Then she answered softly. "Because sometimes money fixes the bill, but not the wound." Lily thought about that. "But you needed it." "I did," Marisol said. "Badly." "Then why?" Marisol glanced at her daughter. "Because I wanted you to know something. Never let anyone make you believe your kindness has a price tag. Help people because it's right. Stand up because it matters. And when someone tries to buy your silence, remember that your dignity is worth more than their check." Lily looked out the window. Then she smiled. "I'm proud of you, Mom." Marisol reached over and squeezed her hand. And for the first time in years, she did not feel poor. Not because her bank account was full. It wasn't. Not because life had become easy. It hadn't. But because she had kept the one thing no one could take from her unless she handed it over. Her worth. A poor woman had saved a billionaire's son. But she had refused his money. And in the end, she received something far greater. She got her life back. She got her purpose back. And she reminded everyone who heard her story that the richest person in the room is not always the one with the most money. Sometimes, it is the one with the courage to do what is right when nobody is clapping. Sometimes, it is the one who kneels on a cold marble floor, holds a stranger's child, and says, "You are not leaving today." And means it.